Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's podcast, Taking Care of Business today with Ryan Mallough, who is the Vice President of Legislative Affairs Ontario for the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Thanks, Ryan, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you folks have put out some interesting data regarding the money that's spent by Canadians and the impact that has. So, for every dollar spent at a local business, what does that translate into for the businesses in general in that economy?
So every dollar spent at a local business sees 66 cents on that dollar recirculating into the local economy, which is a huge number, and especially huge when you compare it to a big multinational business like a Walmart in the same community where it's only 11 cents that circulates. So the value of buying something at a local small business is 6 times as much buying that same item at a multinational.
So how critical is this, obviously, for small businesses in Canada, which have faced, obviously, a lot of pain and anguish over the last couple of years because of COVID and other economic challenges? So how critical and important is it for small business survival to have you, me, and others, spend locally?
I think it's pretty huge. And I think over the course of the pandemic, we really saw Canadians rally around small businesses and certainly around the importance of small business, the sentiment around small business. Anytime that we do, a public opinion poll asking how important is it to your community that small businesses thrive, those numbers are always in the 90s, right? People believe that they're very important. At the same time, though, we don't really see that translating into action. A lot of small businesses still very much behind normal revenues, more than half of businesses across the country compared to pre-pandemic. And we know that the cost of living crunch is hitting everybody and that people sort of feel, I've got to go to that big box store because they're going to have the better price. Well, our data shows you that not only is there a tremendous amount of community value in shopping at a small business, but we also know that, even the price side of things isn't always true. I think it's sort of been ingrained into us to believe that the Amazons, the Walmarts, that's where the best prices are. That might have been true at one point, but oftentimes small businesses are just as competitive. The challenge is getting people through the door. And that's what we're hoping this number helps do. Is there is an added benefit, and you may find that what you're looking for is right there. It's price competitive. It's everything you want. And to boot, you are really helping out your community when you're shopping local.
Okay, now speaking of helping out the community, you've launched a new initiative with the hashtag Small Business Every Day. Tell me a little bit about that campaign and why you've launched it.
Yeah, so this is our 4th year running Small Business Every Day, and it's something that we came up with during the pandemic. Again, just to remind Canadians that local businesses have been through a tough time, but they're looking for your support. It matters deeply to them, and to draw attention, not just for local shopping, but to policymakers as well, to remind them that, for the billions of dollars of subsidies that we hand to large businesses, it's really important that we're making sure the policy environment supports small too, because small does so much more for the community. And again, it's not just about charitable donations or being the name on the back of a kid's hockey sweater or baseball jersey. There really is economic value and community value to that dollar spent locally staying and recirculating in the community.
Mm-hmm. Now, the big businesses, like as you mentioned, some of those giant retailers, they can take these little hits here and there, right? It's a drop in the bucket for them, but for a small business, even, like a couple of percent drop in sales can be huge, right?
Really significant. And again, I think especially during the pandemic, we saw a lot of shopping habits change a little bit. I mean, in those earliest months in May of 2020, we were seeing Amazon numbers that are normally reserved for that Black Friday, Cyber Monday holiday shopping season in the heart of spring. That's abnormal. It's not that high anymore, but I think a lot of habits stuck there. I think we've got things like hybrid work means you're not, downtown at the office as frequently. So you're not passing those small business window displays. You're not popping into a shop necessarily on the way home. You're inclined to go, oh, I can order that, or I can, go to the big box that's around the corner, not really thinking about getting out into the local community. So again, Small Business Every Day is in part to help remind customers that, small businesses are there. They do need you, but also that there is a benefit not just to the business for purchasing the item, but to the whole community when you shop local and keep your loonies local.
Yeah. What's your sense I guess the sentiment and in the small business community these days? As I said, we've talked a lot about some of the challenges they faced over the last few years. Do you think and of course the CEBA loans which are due, and that's another issue we've talked about before. But what's your sense of how they're feeling these days in terms of their viability and whether or not they can tough it out still?
Would say that there's still a lot of nervousness around that. I think there's a lot that's still up in the air. I mean, small business owners by their nature tend to be very optimistic people. I don't think that, you put everything on the line and chase that dream if you're not optimistic by nature. But the pandemic took its toll. And I mean, you rose the CEBA loan, that in particular, not knowing which direction that's going to go, if there will be an extension, if that loan is going to come due at the end of the year, is putting a tremendous amount of pressure on businesses. And I think that, we especially in watching the news, always looking for, if there's a negative story out there, the closure threat, I think, is very real if we don't see something like CEBA extended. So I'd say that, there's a lot of businesses that are hanging on. I think the fall is going to be very important, especially from the retail side. Always want to have a strong finish to the year. I think that's very important this year. But again, it's not all doom and gloom. I think there is reason for hope. We're seeing a lot of businesses innovate, a lot of businesses adapt. But like we're all facing, the economic situation is tough, and it really will come down to the wire for a lot of small businesses. So as anybody is able, even if it's shifting a small portion of your spending to small businesses away from those big multinationals, again, Walmart's, Amazon, not hurting right now. If you can even a couple of purchases towards a small business, it can really make a big difference.
And let's not forget too that there's, while many are struggling and many over the last couple of years have just basically closed their doors, there's still a lot that are starting up, right? And people are wanting to become an entrepreneur, want to be a small business owner. Does it surprise you still that despite this challenging environment, people still want to do this?
I don't think it's a surprise so much as just a ton of respect for what an entrepreneur goes through. I mean, when you're in a job like mine and you see some of the, the government regulation and the crazy red tape and the decisions that get made with, seemingly no rhyme or reason, you sort of go, why would anybody want to jump into this? And that people still do, because they're chasing after a dream. I mean, no small business owner gets into it to cut through red tape. They get into it to do something that they love. And there is something tremendously inspiring, I think, about the passion that people keep bringing to the willingness to continue to jump into this. And I mean, for us at CFIB, that's what keeps us going, to make sure that we are doing everything we can to help create the environment to help those people thrive.
All right. Thanks very much, Ryan, for joining us today.
Anytime.
All right, that was Ryan Mallough, who is Vice President of Legislative Affairs in Ontario for the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Managing Editor of Canada's Podcasts. Thanks for joining us today on Taking Care of Business.